When I was born, I was ready.
Sean Sullivan, the project is called Hereafter, and it's a mix of blues and jazz, Americana, a little bit of pop, some soul. But I would say the thread that goes through it is the blues, and soul, and somehow or another I make it all work. I always sang. I sang since I was very young, and so I decided to use guitar as an instrument for accompanying the voice. I studied in school in a class of people studying guitar for a little bit. I had this little rinky-dink, like $25 half-size guitar, the kids have, and I kind of worked that to death. And then I finally my mom got me for my birthday a Guild D40. Went crazy on guitar and had a great time with that. So I've been really using guitar as a means to accompany my voice and concentrating on the repertoire for gigs, basically. I wouldn't by any stretch call me a great guitarist, but I seem to manage.
Had my fun, I have lived.
John Hendricks has been around for quite a while, and he had a group called the Lambert, Hendricks and Ross, which was a jazz vocal group in the 1950s. They had this wonderful art of taking classic jazz material like Ellington and Basie, and they would take the actual recordings. John wrote lyrics to the actual solos of those recordings. I never took an avenue more enjoyable to me. C Avenue was groovy. Things like that. Of course, the famous one that of that is called Vocalise. That's what that art form is called. There I go, there I go, there I go. So John was a master of that, and still is, and he takes things like Miles Davis's compositions and writes these fantastic lyrical things that are constructs that are actual stories. Then the horns themselves would weave in conversationally and lyrically conversationally as well. He's a master. I mean, he's taught all the great jazz singers. Bobby McFerrin was in his band for a bit. Al Jarreau, everybody takes their hat off to John. I urge anybody to go, if you want to particularly hear kind of the apotheosis of John's abilities, you want to check out Freddie Freeloader, which is kind of a tour de force, and it's got Al Jarreau and Bobby McFerrin and George Benson all doing John's lyrics. But he's just fabulous, and of course I hung around with him, and he would give me all the stories about the great jazz musicians and stuff, so it was kind of like being around back then just to get that inspiration. And then I learned with him a bunch of his material, and I had been, kind of a singer-songwriter person from the beginning, and was influenced by the Beatles and the rock musicians like Neil Young, and then I started playing a little bit of jazz because my stepfather had a jazz radio show growing up. So I had all those sounds, growing up. So after I got met John at the New School here in New York, we just became friends, and then I completely went off into the bebop thing for quite a while. Hereafter is full circle. It kind of pulls in the jazz and the blues and the singer-songwriter stuff and all of the flavors that I've studied and love.
Don't get me started. Don't start.
Matt Pearson was the producer, and he has done a lot of projects with great singers and jazz instrumentalists and in a variety of contexts too, not only in jazz but also in singer-songwriter world and in pop, etc. And we decided to do it over a place where he works a lot, at Sear Sound here in New York. That is the oldest recording studio in the city. So they have an enormous collection of vintage microphones over there. And the original Studers that the Beatles recorded on. It's really a fascinating room, and you feel the energy of all the amazing people that have recorded there. That was the old space for the Hit Factory. And John Lennon's last recording may have been in the very room. And so it has just this tremendous mojo going on in that room. And we got a great band, Tony Scher, Kevin Hayes on piano, Tony on bass. Kenny Wollesen on drums, Seamus Blake doing some horn chores, Andy Snitzer, Shayna Steele with some background vocals, Ray Angry. We threw in a little strings arrangements from David Mann and some percussion from Bashiri Johnson. I mean, just a host of the best people. So Matt was very helpful, you know, in assembling some good people for the project.
You got me started. No, 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 I told you so.
New York is a fantastic jazz city, you know, the New School and Juilliard and the Manhattan School of Music. And so you have a big collection of people learning their trade and cutting their teeth, so to speak. Great clubs that you can go and hang out all night, Smalls, Fat Cat, Zinc Bar. But you can go and hear fantastic artists for a beer, man. There's always something going on in New York City in jazz.
Take it from my hand, don't you get me started. Don't start.
When people come to see you, you want to give them something. Anyway, you know, I'm not one of these people that just plays my thing and it's so complex that it's above everybody, and that's not my bag at all. I want people to feel as though they're in a living room, and that's the atmosphere I try to create in my performances. Is, you know, I actually like it when there's noise in a place where the glasses are clinking and, you know, people listen for a little bit and then they tune out and then they tune in or they talk to their friends for a second. It's okay, man. It feels a lot better when real life is going on, because music is part of real life. Yeah, and people come to see you and they put money down, they buy drinks. You know, it's a responsibility for you to show up at the gig and have your bleep together. I think that, you know, like the lyric in Don't Get Me Started, music is a river ever flowing by. I think it's all around us. I think what we try to do is get glimpses, and we try to tap into this kind of ethereal force that floats around us. And when it works, it's when we're in the moment. You know, being in the moment is very important, and trying to train yourself as a musician to be real, to be truthful, and be in the moment. You know, I think it's important not to phone it in, to really just kind of reach in and pull something out of yourself and share that with other people. I think that communication is like no other form of communication on the planet.
Get me, don't get me.
Hi, I'm Sean Sullivan. Look for me on Last.fm.